ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. It is now almost 70 years, to be exact 69 years since the establishment of the State of Israel. On May 14, 1948, Ben-Gurion made the declaration. He hereby declares the establishment of the State of Israel. And there were very few people that even knew exactly what would be the name of the state. There were many, by the way, that were against the establishment of a new state because the Arab nations had already declared beforehand they're going to attack Israel. They're not going to permit the establishment of a Jewish state. They actually did attack, and what happened? Fortunately, our ancestors were victorious. They didn't have real armies, and they were fighting against the Jordan Legion, for instance, armies that had been well established and trained by the British for decades. Now, Israel had to defend itself, and it did so successfully, thank God. And the establishment of the State of Israel was consolidated. One of the important factors from a political point of view was the late President Harry Truman, who, against the advice of his own State Department, recognized the new state. And that gave it, of course, enormous impetus always for other nations to do the same. So that we are very fortunate because that happened so. Now looking back after all these years, was the United Nations justified in establishing a Jewish state, permitting the establishment of a Jewish state? Is that historically correct? Well, first of all, we have to think that the Jewish people always prayed toward Israel. If you lived thousands of miles away, when you got up to pray, you faced Israel. You faced east. If you lived in the Middle East, if you lived in Iraq, for instance, you turned west because Israel is west of Iraq. Every time our thoughts were centered on the return to the State of Israel. There's an anecdote. I don't know how true it is. Maybe I mentioned it to you already. Napoleon, was in a very small village in Europe. During a day, it was Tisha B'Av, the anniversary of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And he saw that there were no people in the streets. So he asked, what happened? Why is nobody around? And they said, well, it's an anniversary of the destruction of the temple of Jerusalem. He thought for a moment and he said, he doesn't remember reading about it in the press at all. When did that happen? They said, no, that happened 18, 19 centuries ago. He reflected for a moment and he said, you know, a people that still longs for the temple in Jerusalem after all these centuries is bound to return once again to that state. And really it was. You know, Chalutzim came pouring into Israel. They left the villages in Europe. There was always a presence of Jews in Israel, but in the beginnings, in the late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, many thousands poured in order to once again reclaim the land. But looking at it from a historical point of view, were the United Nations correct in establishing a state of Israel? What have the Jews done with that state? Well, take a look. There is no other state that can compare to it. In 7 decades, what was done? The progress, the scientific investigation, culture, theater, whatever you want, a very extraordinary society, advanced, comparable to any society in the West in a mere 7 decades. It's unheard of. You know, Jews didn't come in order to destroy what was there and build anew. They found a desert. They found an abandoned land that nobody cared for really, and they came and rebuilt it. I don't know if I mentioned to you, I was in Spain a number of years ago, and I came to the Alhambra, it's called in Andalusia, where there are palaces that the sultans or the important people of Islam had built for their concubines, God knows what. And I saw there also a Catholic church. So I said, what is a Catholic church doing? And what is really territory was once Islam? And they told me, no, there was a mosque there. But when the Catholics reclaimed once again under the Catholic kings and throughout exiled the Arabs from the peninsula, what they did immediately was to change it, destroy the mosque, and put a Catholic church in its stead. Well, that's not what Israel did. Israel didn't destroy anything in its land. Its land was fallow, abandoned. What they did was build it, not rebuild something that was there already. They started from scratch, so to speak. So when you look at it from that point of view, it was great that it was done. But take a look how that took place. I said almost 7 decades. You know what happened? Several wars. To this very day, somebody wants to annihilate the state of Israel. There is no other nation, no other country that is a member of the United Nations that is under constant threat of being erased from the map. Israel is. They have to defend their lives every day, and yet, nevertheless, they have done what they have done. Of course, for the ultra-religious, Israel isn't so kosher either, because they feel that God somehow has to come and build again another temple, and God has to give us the land of Israel. For, on the other hand, those that believe very little, those who are totally secular, they feel it's the Chalutzim, it's a Jewish effort. And of course, one cannot minimize what they have done. One cannot minimize what Tzahal has done. But I think that for the majority of the Jewish people, the hand of God is there. There are many miracles that happen in our own days that permit the continuity of the state of Israel, because Israel is a land that is very peculiar. It doesn't tolerate immorality. We have to respond. We have to justify why we are there. We're supposed to be Or LaGoyim. We have to be a light unto the nations. And there is no question that in these 70 years, 69 years to be exact, Israel has demonstrated that it is an example. They treat those who are sick without taking into consideration if they're Jews or not. They may be their enemies even. If they are sick, their hospitals treat them. In Israel, you have equal rights for everyone. Men, women, children, older people. Israel is an extraordinary society, and as long as it continues to be so, without doubt, God will continue to guide to safety the destiny of the state of Israel.